Assalamu alaikum everyone, how are you guys doing? Let's talk about atheism. When I went to college studying political science and theology, I had a lot of discussions with atheists. And during my time in college, I heard a lot of shubuhat, a lot of doubts that were thrown at the belief in God, at theists. Well, I can't go over every single thing I heard. That would take a very long video. I want to go over some of the main arguments that I've heard while in college and post-college, going online, going on social media, on YouTube, watching videos, the top 5 arguments that atheists use against theism. Well, 5 and plus 1 if you're a Muslim, and you'll see it at the end, okay? The first one is the burden of proof claim. Burden of proof claim is essentially when you're in a discussion with an atheist, as a theist, as a Muslim probably, because most of my viewers are Muslim, the atheist will generally say, well, the burden of proof is not on me. The burden of proof is on you. Now, this throws a lot of people off, because if you think about it, the theist is making a positive claim. They're the one saying there is a God. And the atheist will just say, well, I don't believe in your positive claim. Can you prove to me that there is a God? And then many theists who may not be in the discussion of all these philosophical arguments and might not know all these logical arguments for God might get caught up and might not know how to answer. And you can actually see this amongst many atheists online. For instance, an old video a couple years ago in a debate with Muhammad Hijab, Andalusi, and Alex O'Connor. And Alex says this.
The burden of proof lies with the proposition. If you, ladies and gentlemen, are not convinced by either side in the debate this evening, then the default position has to be atheism. The default position has to be there's no good reason to believe either way, and so we simply don't believe in Islam. That's why the title of the debate is something of a false dichotomy. But the burden of proof certainly lies with the proposition.
Did you catch that? He doesn't have to prove that there is no God. It's upon Muhammad Hijab and Andalusi, and any theist, to prove the existence of God. However, this is not true, and this is what a lot of atheists say, and is simply not true. Now, in order to better understand this, let's put this in logical form. If we were to put the theistic belief, in a logical format, it would say T asserts A. T, let's say anybody, asserts A, and then let's say A is the belief in God. Now, the atheistic understanding is T asserts not A. So they're both making a claim. Both atheists and theists are making a claim. The only difference is that the atheist is making a negative claim, but a negative claim still needs to be proven. In a very interesting article written by Shuaib Malik, he talks about atheism and the concept of burden of proof. And in the paper, there's a graph that he puts up about claims that are made, about positive, neutral, and negative claims. And the first thing that he talks about are physical claims. So for instance, if let's say the teacher asks me, where is, for instance, he used the name Sarah. I'm in Medina. There's no Sarah in my class. So we'll say, Malik, Abdullah, whatever. Let's continue with Sarah. So if the teacher says, hey, is Sarah in the classroom? Now, the positive claim is saying, yes, Sarah is in the classroom. Now, let's say Sarah is not in the classroom. The negative claim would be Sarah is not in the classroom. Both of these claims require burden of proof. The teacher asked, where is Sarah? And you said the positive assertion, Sarah is in the classroom, and the teacher responded by saying, well, I don't see Sarah. Your burden of proof is saying, well, she's right there, like you point to her. If, let's say, for instance, Sarah is not in the classroom, and you say Sarah is not in the classroom, and the teacher says, no, but she is in the classroom, you have to present the burden of proof. You have to say, no, she's actually not in the classroom, and you can say, look at the class, Sarah is not here, or hey, Sarah texted me saying that she is not going to be here because she is sick. You get the point? Look at these positive negative claims. Malik, in his article, shows the metaphysical claim. Positive claim is God exists. The negative claim is God does not exist. In both the physical and metaphysical claim, whoever's making the arguments, whether positive or negative, has the burden of proof. So both the theist and the atheist have the burden of proof. Now, there's an interesting discussion going on. Do agnostics have to have the burden of proof? Do agnostics, if somebody says to you, well, I just don't know if there's a God. I just don't believe that there is a God. I just don't know whether or not there is a God. Do those individuals have a burden of proof? Based on Graham Oppy, an atheist philosopher, he would say yes.
Whether, supposing that the position was coherent, there would be some dialectical advantage you would gain by just saying, well, I suspend judgment about that proposition. But in philosophy, when we're thinking about positions that you might take, that's a position that requires defense just as much as advocating for theism or for atheism. It's not like in philosophy of religion, agnostics have no obligations to try to defend the position that they're taking on. What they're going to have to say is something like this, that the balance of considerations favours neither atheism nor theism. And if you just say the balance of considerations doesn't favour theism, you haven't fully articulated a position at that point.
A agnostic has a burden of proof insofar as they would have to explain to the person they're talking to what would convince them of said belief. If you're talking to somebody, say, well, I just don't believe, I don't agree with the evidence. The burden of proof then is on, well, what would convince you? What is your definition of being convinced on something? So in all scenarios, some people have a burden of proof. Even if you were to deny that agnostics have a burden of proof, if you're a true agnostic and you're in a debate, then there's no point in the debate. You just got to listen and get information. But regardless of that, that's an issue of debate. When it comes to atheists, atheists have the burden of proof. Actually, if you were to think about it, atheists have more of a burden of proof than theists. What? Yes. The reason why is, let's think about this. Throughout all of history, people have believed in God. There are studies, which I will put down in the description below, showing that there is an innate belief in God amongst people, not just a social thing, not a social construct, an innate belief in God. And majority of people believe in God. To go against the norm, you have to provide a huge amount of evidence as to why you think the norm is not correct. Let's just say, for instance, somebody says, I don't believe we live in the real world. And we're like, well, why would you say that? And they're like, no, you got the burden of proof. I think most people would say, well, you're making this absurd claim that like no one in the world actually believes in. You have to make the burden of proof. You have to present to us information why we're not in the real world. Now, atheism obviously has a following. There are many people who are atheists. However, they are still in the minority. But even if we were to ignore all of that, let's say that it's an even playing field. At the end of the day, both have the burden of proof. So when an atheist says to you, you have the burden of proof, I don't, then logically, through the understanding of logic, that is incorrect, and they also have the burden of proof as well. The second one that I've heard so many times, and it's so annoying to hear, is please provide the scholarly, scientific, research-based article proving God's existence. In this clip, Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, is arguing with Aaron Ra, whatever his name is, and the debate is on if there evidence for the existence of God. Now, Jake showed that there must be a God due to their having truths in the world, necessary truths. Therefore, there must be a necessary being in order for everything to be based on those truths. So it's a long argument, but he's making a very logical, philosophical argument for the existence of God. In this clip, Aaron is saying, where is the evidence? Where is the verifiable data that all of this exists, that God exists? And he's not saying, bring me the scientific, research article, but the terminology he's using is hinting at he just accepts scientific evidence, because the argument that Jake has made in this debate have been argued by many philosophers throughout centuries, years, hundreds of years. Philosophers have been using necessary being arguments for the existence of God. And you just watch this video and you'll see that Aaron just wants scientific proof, because he's kind of stupid.
Help me out here. Where was the objectively verifiable data? that positively indicates one available position over any other. It wasn't just a logical quandary, but an actual objectively verifiable data.
Okay, there's so many things wrong with this one. However, in order to really understand why this is very not academic and not smart, let's look at the definition of evidence by the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. In the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it reads that evidence is a thing which can make a difference to what one is justified in believing or what it is reasonable for one to believe. Essentially, evidence gives you the justification of what you believe in, or pushes you in the direction of believing something more. Now, the problem with saying I need scholarly scientific evidence is that not everything we have is scientific. Not everything we believe in is scientific. Your memory, for instance, that your memory does not lie to you, that your memory is not falsified, that whatever you have seen and you remember is true. Can you prove that scientifically? Can you prove scientifically that all the memories when you were 5 years old, 10 years old, when you were can you remember stuff when you were 5 years old? Anyway, when you're 15 years old, whatever the case may be in high school, do you have a scientific evidence? Is there a scholarly thing saying that your memory is reliable? Not really. It's just we take that under consideration. There's many things that we take under consideration. The rules of logic, the law of non-contradiction, is not scientifically proven, but it is a law. We have to work with the law of non-contradiction in order to even do science. Not only that, but if you're going to take this claim of only science being evidence, you're putting yourself into scientism. Scientism is not a scientific belief, it's an epistemological belief, one in which only through science can we gain truth. However, as I just stated, that's so problematic. So there will be so many things that you can't prove scientifically that you believe in. Further understand the issue with this claim, let's take a look at another form of evidence that when you hear this, you'll go well, obviously I'll believe in it, even though it's not a scientific claim. Let's say, for instance, you want to go upstairs to your 7th floor apartment, and all of a sudden you see one person running down. And that person tells you, hey, there's a fire upstairs. Sure, okay, this person's kind of weird. Why is he screaming? But you might believe them. Let's say another person comes. There's a fire upstairs. Let's say 10 people came. Hey, there's a fire on the 7th floor. Do not go upstairs. Let's say 100 people come and tell you the exact same thing. Would you believe them? Or would you ask at least one of them, well, can you give me the scientific research, peer-reviewed article on the existence of the fire? I don't think you would. You would believe it. That's testimonial evidence. And there's a vast array of evidence. Logical arguments, strong logical argument with sound and valid premises, then the conclusion must always be correct. That is evidence for something. Same with intuition. Millions of people have an intuition of something. That is evidence of something. It doesn't mean ipso facto that's true. It just means that there is evidence of something. Evidence pushes you towards the belief in something, as we read the definition before. So if the testimonial evidence pushes you towards something, or if the intuition, logical arguments push one of us towards a specific understanding of something, that's evidence. So we don't need this anymore, this garbage. Oh, I need scientific examination of everything. That argument is dumb and it gotta rest, okay? Editing Petrit here. My third argument that atheists use was not recorded properly on my camera, so I had to record it on a later date. So if you see my hair shorter, it's because I got a haircut. Okay, so the third argument that I've heard many times from atheists is one less. What is this? Well, actually, we'll summarize this argument by showing you guys a clip from the Colbert Show when he had Ricky Gervais on. Ricky Gervais, I don't know how you say his name. And he used this argument, so I'll let you guys watch the clip.
You believe in one God, I assume?
In 3 persons, but go ahead.
Okay, so you believe... Okay. So, but there are about 3,000 to choose from that have been, people who believe in...
I've done some reading, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So basically, you believe in... You deny one less God than I do. You don't believe in 2,999 gods, and I don't believe in just one more.
Right.
Woo, Ricky Gervais, you're so smart. Woo! Essentially what Ricky Gervais is saying here is that we're all, in a sense, atheists. It's just that he, the atheist, Ricky Gervais, went one step further. We deny 2,999 gods, and he just denies one more. We just got to take that one extra step. We're all atheists. He just took that one extra step. This argument is so stupid. Let me explain. Let's say I'm a vegan, and then I'm arguing with you about why everyone should be a vegan, right? And I say to you, well, if you think about it, we're all vegans. We don't eat 999 animals. I just go one animal ahead of you guys. So we're all vegans. Just take the extra step, buddy. Become a vegan. Vegan lives matter. I don't know what they say. Does that argument make sense? What if we say, we're all incels. When you really think about it, it says I choose not to have activities with just one less person, with zero. Well, if you think about it, we're all murderers because I just killed one extra person than you did. You just got to take that one extra step, and we're all murderers then. Like, you can see how this argument fails to work in any other form. Like, it's kind of stupid. But the atheist will use this as a kind of, oh, I got you moment. Like, oh, I beat you. Pow. Right in the face. And the theist is like, oh, God, I don't know what to say. But if you just put this argument in any other logical form, in any other context, as you clearly saw with veganism, being a murderer, being an incel, it simply does not work. It's actually laughable when you actually really think about it. There is one point of why I brought this up. Specifically the 3,000, 2,000, 1,000, whatever the number is, gods. An atheist will always bring this up, that there are 3,000 different gods. If you type in gods, you'll see Zeus, you'll see Poseidon, you'll see Baal, whatever the case may be. You'll see all of these stuff, and I just don't know who to believe in. Which one do I believe in? I gotta investigate every single god, the argument that's provided by them, and that's too much stuff there. Because there are so many gods, it's idiotic to believe in just one. Okay, first off, there are not that many gods. There are three types of beliefs or not beliefs in a god. There's atheists, which is a not belief in a god. A monotheist, which is the belief in one god, and a polytheist, which is the belief in many gods. This 3,000 claim is the belief in polytheism. There are many different types of gods. Now, if you're going to look at a necessary being argument that, everything here in this world is contingent, there must be a necessary being, or there must be a first cause, any of these arguments for God, they all tend to argue for a monotheistic conception of God. Many arguments made in the philosophy departments, many arguments are made in terms of a monotheistic belief in God. So we can eliminate a huge chunk of those 3,000 gods. Once we eliminated polytheism, there isn't that many gods now. There's monotheism, the belief in one God. And there are primarily three main religions that argue for monotheism: Christianity, Judaism, Islam. So you're not picking from 10,000 gods. To give this an analogy, you don't know what to eat. You're really hungry. You're starving. Starving is a big term, but you're hungry. And you're like, well, what am I going to eat? And you can say, well, oh my God, there's so many foods out there in the world. I just don't know which one to pick. There's pizza, there's burgers, there's fries, there's rice, there's pasta, there's a ravioli, there's a mac and cheese. I just don't know which one to pick. And then somebody comes like, look, dude, what time is it? They ask you what time it is. Oh, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Did you eat breakfast? No, I didn't eat breakfast yet. Okay, why don't you just eat breakfast food? Breakfast food. That cuts down the list by a lot. Okay. And then the guy says, well, aren't you allergic to dairy products? You're like, oh yeah, I am allergic to dairy products. That cuts down a list a lot. So you have to look at groups and just knock the groups down. You eliminate polytheism, there isn't that many beliefs in gods or that many gods that you think there are. And many philosophers, many theologians, and many atheists, when they're discussing God, they are discussing the belief in a monotheistic God. Very rarely do you actually see an atheist, a philosopher, a theist debate a polytheistic idea of a God. Even Christians with a 3-in-1, they will not claim polytheism. Obviously, it's a monotheistic religion. So the point of me these arguments that atheists use, there are so many gods. We just believe in one less. That's already a stupid argument. We already defeated that. And the argument of, well, we got to look at all these gods. Once you take them into groups, you'll see that there's only like two ideas of gods. Either there's monotheism or polytheism. Once we eliminated polytheism, which is a very easy one to eliminate, then we have monotheism, and there's only 3 types there, and obviously the right one's Allah, Islam, right, guys? So that was that argument, and this was a very weak argument. However, I do hear it repeat a lot online amongst atheists, and I thought this was like done. This argument was like destroyed. Like, I thought this argument wasn't going to be used anymore. However, it is still used, and it really has got to go. Now, the 4th argument that atheists will use is they'll say, well, which God are you arguing about?
I remain unconvinced by any claims anyone has ever made about the existence or the power of a divine force operating in the universe.
Oh, by the way, just to be clear, what's probably missing from your extracted quote is the setup for that, which would be, is there a particular God you have in mind that you want me to comment on? Huh, okay. Which God? Is it Zeus? Is it Poseidon? Is it the Jewish God? Is it the Christian God?
So, yeah.
All right, so you look at all of this and say, is that the God you want me to comment on?
And the atheist will throw this as a counter. Like, you're arguing for that there must be a God, but which God is it? Like, I need to know. Like, are you arguing for the Buddha? And if you are, you have to prove to me that the Buddha is the God. If you're arguing for Jesus, you got to prove to me that Jesus is the God. However, frankly, this is 100% irrelevant to the discussion at hand. Let me provide you guys an analogy to just showcase how irrelevant and idiotic this point is. Let's say you're walking down the street and you see a dead body. You tell the police come, they do investigation. Upon, after 10-15 minutes, they do the investigation and they declare that this person was murdered. Okay, they have all these facts, all these things that happened, and the person was murdered. And now would it be logical? Now imagine if there was that atheist there who says, well, officer, and the police officer says, I don't know yet. We just declared that it's a murder. And the atheist says, I guess case solved. Because you don't know who did the murder, there was no murder. Do you really think that's logical? If a police officer did investigation, have evidence that he was murdered, it was not self-inflicted, it was not an accident, it was 100% a murder. There are footprints of somebody running away. There's cameras of a hooded figure who did the murder. And an individual just says, well, because you don't know who did the murder, you can't prove to me that he was murdered. But who did the murder is the second portion of looking into this case. Same thing with God. You can make an argument that there must be a necessary being or that there must be a God without making the argument which God it is. That's the second portion of the discussion. If an atheist, for instance, agrees with the notion that there must be a necessary being or that the universe must have a first cause, and then we go on the second discussion of the obvious answer that the God of everything is Allah. You get the point here? Editing Patrice here. Decided to add more context in this which God argument. The reason why it's important to catch an atheist or anyone who says, well, which God are you arguing for, is because if the discussion is on the belief on whether there is a God, and then the atheist says, well, which God? And then you're going to argue saying, well, obviously Allah. Well, that's the right answer. Nothing wrong with that, obviously, because we're obviously all arguing that there is one God and that God has to be Allah. However, if the atheist does not even believe that there is a God, he doesn't believe in any God, he says there's no such thing as a God, then you jump into, well, believe in Islam, then the atheist will say, okay, what about hudud? What about this? What about that? They'll throw all these doubts, the shotgun tactic, just hurtling at you different stuff that Islam says. What about this hadith? What about that hadith? And the discussion goes away from, is there a God, to, well, what about Islamic law? What about Islamic marriage and stuff like that? And that's kind of pushing the discussion away from the fundamental question at hand, if there is a God. If someone is able to get into the belief that there is a God, that there must be a God, and convincing them that this God is Allah and that Islam is the right religion is a much easier task if they already believe in the fundamental, that there is a God. Point here. So this is the reason why this is an important thing to note, that if you're in a discussion on whether there is a God, put the discussion at the fundamental aspect that there only must be a God, then you can go into the other aspect. And finally, the flying spaghetti monster, Santa Claus, Tooth Fairy, all that jazz. Many online atheists will make this claim saying, well, the reason I don't believe in God is the same reason why I don't believe in Santa Claus, I don't believe in the Tooth Fairy, the flying spaghetti monster. And purpose and I guess the power of this argument, why they use it, is because the Tooth Fairy and the Santa Claus is something we all 100% know does not exist. We have never seen it. There's no footprints of it, and we know because we're growing up that our parents tell us that a fat man can't come underneath a chimney. Wait a minute, I don't even have a chimney. Anyway, the fact of the matter is the argument works to those who are not, educated on this polemic stuff, because they're saying, well, why did you stop believing in the Tooth Fairy but not in God yet? However, this argument falls for two big reasons. First off, no one actually believes in this stuff. Obviously, no one believes in Santa Claus, no one believes in Tooth Fairy. Even kids when they grow up and they're like 6 years old, they know, okay, there's no Santa Claus. When they're like 8 years old, they know there's no Santa Claus, no Tooth Fairy. It's their mom putting the money underneath the pillow or whatever the case may be, or the parents, decorating the Christmas tree and putting it there. Well, we Muslims don't do this stuff, but you get the point I'm saying here. And no one believes it, but there are a vast array of people who believe it. Once again, I'm going to put a study down below in the description that people have an intuition of there being a God, a thing that created everything. There are studies done showing that people across the world, even in places that don't believe in a monotheistic God, they will say, yes, there is something that created me. There is something that created the universe. There's an innate belief. Is not a proper analogy here. The second reason why this argument fails is because we actually have evidence for God. As I said from the second point of this video, we have logical arguments, the Kalam cosmological argument, the contingency argument, the ontological argument. We have the first cause argument. We have so many arguments for the existence of God, academic works on these. But we don't have the same thing for the Tooth Fairy. Have you ever read an article in an actual Harvard, Oxford printed that says, hey, here's an argument for the Tooth Fairy? No, we all know it's not true, but there's actual good evidence for the existence of God. This argument falters for so many reasons. Here are just two. Very weak argument. And if the atheist says this, trust me, then you know that he's not even worth your time debating him. And the secret hidden sixth one for my Muslim followers, which is I think 99.9% of you, is that the atheist, when debating about God, will not debate about the Islamic understanding of Allah. No, they will debate everything that has to do with Christianity. An atheist will tailor their arguments as if they're talking to Christians. It seems like they're not used to debating Muslims. I saw this once in a video with Muhammad Hijab and Alex O'Connor. I know I'm beating on Alex right now. Muhammad Hijab and Andalusi made the contingency argument. And then what did Alex say? He said something, well, how do you know that the universe was created? Or he says something along that line. I'll put the video here.
So basically, I think maybe my colleague is used to debating perhaps some certain Christians and what have you. I'd like to think that perhaps we're a slightly different breed in terms of our approach or philosophical approach. I don't think he addressed actually what I said, and I think strawman my argument.
And Muhammad Hijab brought up a good point. we never make that claim. You're used to debating Christians, but we never made that claim. Even when and that hit me, saying, yeah, like, a lot of these atheists, when they're doing these great, grand discussions against God, they're always, without saying it, they're only having the Christian understanding of God, not how we Muslims understand Allah. Go against the easy target, Christianity. Christianity is an easy target. Christianity is a religion with the understanding of a contradiction, 3 in 1. Islam doesn't have that. And the fact of the matter is, atheists do this because Islam has no contradictions. Now, there might be some atheists who try doing it. I'm not saying that some of them don't. And there might be some atheists who are just, frankly ignorant on Islam. There are many of those there. And same with Christians and other stuff. But I feel like Islam has something special. It has no contradiction, no logical contradictions, like the inherent contradiction of the Trinity. Yet when it comes to the atheists, they will always tailor their arguments as if they're arguing with a Christian, even though they're arguing with a Muslim. And here's my advice to all you Muslims. If you know your Islam correctly, and if you study the proper aqidah and the proper understanding of Islam, read the Quran, read the Hadith, study under good teachers, none of these doubts will affect you. And these doubts will be so easy to go against. Islam gives you everything. Muslims and my non-Muslim audiences, if you read the Quran, try finding just one contradiction. You won't find it. No one has found it for so many years. Then you'll have something that we call sakina. You'll have peace. You'll have tranquility. And you'll understand the truth of Islam. And with this in mind, all of these doubts, you'll realize they're very idiotic when compared to the truth that is so prevalent of Islam. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Assalamu alaikum.